New on Curiosity Stream. How do you connect a 16th century potato to limitless energy production? Could Napoleon's toothpick have a direct link to a machine that predicts the future? And how can a 1700s conch shell chart a course to humans connecting their brains to the internet? James Burke's visionary series Connections returns for a new generation. Experience all new Connections. With monthly, annual, and bundled plans, find the one that works for you at curiositystream.com. New on Curiosity Stream.
I'm James Burke. I'm going to take you on a journey through time.
James Burke's visionary series returns, reimagined for our time.
Now, this is all uncharted territory.
The Washington Post hails Burke as one of the most intriguing minds in the Western world. The New York Times raves he careens from one great moment in history to another.
Where do we want to go from here?
Experience all new Connections.
So what's the next connection?
With monthly, annual, and bundled plans, find the one that works for you at curiositystream.com.
Welcome to Pretty Lies and Alibis. Let's seek the truth and travel the long road to justice together. What you know, Alibiers? Happy Monday. Welcome to another episode of Pretty Lies and Alibis. I'm Gigi. Hope you're doing good today. Start of a new week. Real quick, want to give a big thank you to Christina and Marcy for the generous donations. I really, really appreciate that. I had a couple of people ask recently what concerts I have coming up. If you're new to the podcast, I am a music freak and I go to concerts nonstop. So next month, I'm taking my oldest to Atlanta to see Roger Waters, who's one half of Pink Floyd, of the lead singers. I saw them in 94 in Clemson when I was in high school. Super excited for this one. He's doing all their hits. She can't wait. The next weekend, we go to Charlotte, which we're kind of wedged in between Atlanta and Charlotte. That's where we live, to see the Lumineers. And guys, just found out today, Stevie Nicks tickets go on sale this Friday for Charlotte and Charleston. So we're going to shoot for Charlotte because it's about an hour and a half from here. And if you remember, I think early in the spring, I said that was like a bucket list thing for the summer and had no clue she was starting a tour. So stoked. Yeah, I will definitely like be on that app way early to get tickets. So also something kind of funny. I bought Sherlock a little tag that lets me see where he goes when he's outside. He's kind of an indoor-outdoor cat. And I heard that cats usually stay about 300 yards from their house, and that's a lie. So apparently Sherlock has 3 or 4 houses that he goes into. And I talked to a couple of them today, and they're like, yeah, we just bought him cat food, and he comes in and cuddles with us, and he's been cheating on me, y'all. It's okay. It's just really funny to look on the app and see all the zigzags and, you know, obviously over the fence. But he doesn't really go on the road. He stays, stays in backyards. All right. So last episode, we went over Serena's interview with police. And the thing that really blew my mind was Lori said that Tylee was trying to distract her. And it was hard living with someone who was so dark. And again, Serena thought this was said over the phone before she came for that big girls meeting in March, but she wasn't positive. And then she said Lori mentioned Tylee being dark multiple times. And part of that, according to Lori, was because of the alleged abuse she suffered. But it was hard because Tylee was a constant disruption to her mission. And she barely knew Serena. And to talk about your kid that way, just period, but also to somebody you barely know, it just, geez Louise. And we also talked about Melanice and her dad. They both have very different versions of what happened to Melanice's mom, Stacy, when she died, and also about the divorce and custody and all that stuff. So I was going through a bunch of really old notes from past episodes and a few random things that I pulled out before we get back in the timeline. Melanie Gibb told police or investigators that Chad and Lori would provide little bits of information at a time. And Melanie Gibb described it as kind of a rope getting tighter and tighter. And she also said these zombie references didn't come until later. Zulema essentially said the same thing in her police interview. Now, we all know that they've both kind of distanced themselves from how deep they both really were before it all hit the fan. But it was interesting that they independently both said they felt like it was little bits that kind of kept them going. And back to that March meeting at Zulema's house. Remember, it was Serena, Gibb, Lori, Christina, and Nicole, and of course Zulema because it was at her house. Lori had called Zulema wanting to meet in a safe and secluded area, so Zulema offered her house. And they said that when they had this little girls' weekend, Lori was constantly on the phone with Chad. But so remember, they did the casting out in the circle. We talked about this yesterday, trying to cast out Ned Schneider out of Charles. And so after this prayer circle, casting out circle, whatever, Chad called Lori and said, "Hey, it worked. The entity's gone." But guess what? A couple days later, Chad called Lori and said when that one exited his body, another one entered. So also, while the group was at Zulema's, Lori taught them about multiple probations, the different levels of creations, and signing contracts with the devil or with Jesus. And she also talked to them about being translated and increasing your vibrations. So Lori told them that Chad could read their vibrations. And I could just pop in a couple little jokes right here, but we're going to keep it family friendly. And Lori said her vibrations were so high that she didn't come from Hawaii to Arizona by plane, but she traveled by portal. And she said she could do this because she was a translated being. And Zulema's like, yeah, I'm a little skeptical because I saw your plane ticket. I just thought that was so funny. So, I mean, it's not funny because a lot of people, but still. Lori told them they were all related to Lori and Chad during previous creations. And she said Lori and Chad were always at the top. Chad was higher than anybody. And Lori also told the girls that Chad was brothers with Heavenly Father and Jesus Christ in another creation. And in another, Chad was the Holy Ghost. In this current creation, Chad was only here to gather the 144,000 and put the church of the firstborn together. So when they were getting into the system of beliefs, she said in the beginning, Alex was a nobody. Lori said Alex was a nobody. And it had only been on Earth once. But as this doctrine progressed, Chad would tell Alex he was already exalted and his only reason for being on this earth was for Lori. They told him he was the angel responsible for stopping Laman and Lemuel from killing Nephi. And Alex totally took that and ran with it. And that was his identity. And his job was to protect Lori. But Lori also told Zulema, Gibb, and Serena to be careful what they said to Alex because he was only a first creation and didn't understand much. And she said it was like giving doctrine to a kindergartner. Zulema was told she was exalted in the fourth world and she didn't have to come to this world, but she did to help them. So on being exalted, Zulema told investigators, if you were exalted, you weren't here for probationary purposes. You were only on loan to help out. And because you weren't here on probation, you weren't tried for anything you did on earth. And she said, Lori said she was already exalted, and she would slam her hand down on the counter and say, doesn't count for me. Lori would tell everyone who had the exalted status they wouldn't be judged for their actions because nothing counted for them while on earth. And part of me says maybe this is why they were so sloppy with things, but then you totally see Lori spitting out lies to cover her tracks, and you're like, yeah, she wasn't crazy. Maybe religious delusions, but still, you don't hide those if you truly believe them. When you're sitting in the police station after Charles has been murdered, you say, hey, we did the earth a favor. It was a demon. Shouldn't say that. So I don't believe it. So Lori started telling Zulema between March and July that JJ would pass away. Zulema said she never heard Lori refer to JJ by any other name or call him a zombie. But after Charles was murdered, she started calling Tylee Hillary. So those are just a few little things that I pulled from some way back when episodes early on. We're going to hop back into this timeline real quick. April 2019 is where we're at. And at some point in April, one of Charles's sons sees JJ for the last time, and he talked to East Idaho News. And he said he was 10 when Charles and Lori got married, but he was never really close with Lori. He did spend some summers and some weekends with them. And when talking about JJ, he said, I love to hang out and play with him and watch movies and run around. He would call me all the time, something like 15 to 20 times a day. And then it dropped to 2 or 3 times a day. And then it just stopped. I figure maybe he's going to school or something like that. I never thought anything bad was going to happen to him or Tylee. And if you remember, Kay said that sometimes JJ would call multiple times a day. My little adopted nephew does the same thing. He lives right across the street from me, but he texts me all day. So I get that. I totally relate to that. So on April 2nd, Charles emails his divorce attorney, Taylor Larson, and the subject was Lori. He says, hey guys, I felt I owed you this much at least. I'm now in Houston in our new home. I say our because Lori is coming after she finishes packing in Arizona. Lots of forgiveness, more misunderstandings. And as I told Taylor, love always wins. If you follow Charles's niece, Kresha, on her Difficult Research YouTube channel, and I suggest you do if you don't, her hashtag is love always wins. And I never knew that relation until this. I just thought that was really, really sweet. So Lori and Zulema are talking already in April about a move. So I think they're planning this move to Rexburg already. Lori and Zulema, I think, were a little at odds. Zulema didn't want to move. She did not want to move. Like, she was all on board with everything, but like not getting a sign from above that I'm supposed to go. So Lori tells her, just stay home until you get a definite answer. But she says in the near future, when they have to go do their mission, they will leave from wherever they are. And April 5th, Lori and Zulema meet at the temple around 7:30 a.m. And later in the day at 4:11, Lori texts Zulema, his body is out, but his head is stuck inside. I think I sealed his forehead too soon. That's why you couldn't see the face. I need to unseal the forehead and release him. I'm sorry, y'all. I need you, is what she tells Zulema. So they make plans for Zulema to meet back up at Lori's house. And Zulema texts Lori Matthew 10, verse 1. He have them power against unclean spirits to cast them out. All right, real quick, we're going to take a moment and hear a word from our paid sponsor, BetterHelp. That's help, HELP. How well would you take care of your car if you had to keep the same car for your entire life? Well, that's how our brains work. So why don't we treat our brains that way? How we care for our minds affects how we experience life. A lot of people go to the gym, they eat healthy to keep their bodies in the best shape possible. And it's equally important to invest time and care into keeping our minds and our emotions healthy. There are plenty of ways to support a healthy brain. You could learn a new language, you could take power naps, but there's also BetterHelp online therapy. And we all know life can get really overwhelming. And sometimes we just can't navigate everything that we're facing. And whether it's a bunch of small things that kind of add up or if it's one big issue, there's no need to create more stress on yourself trying to cope alone. I have totally been in counseling before. I realized I was making things just so much more difficult on myself, trying to navigate all these rough waters instead of allowing somebody who's a trained professional to help me figure out how to deal with certain pressure and stresses. So BetterHelp, the cool thing about BetterHelp that I love is online therapy that offers video, phone, and even live chat only therapy sessions. So you don't even have to be on camera if you don't want to. And I love the fact that you can do this from home. You're more comfortable. And I think that really can assist in the counseling session when you are absolutely comfortable. And I think the fact that it's online helps people who are embarrassed to go. There's some people still have a stigma, or some people are just sadly too depressed to leave their house. It's much more affordable than in-person therapy, and you can be matched with a therapist in under 48 hours. Our listeners get 10% off their first month at BetterHelp. BetterHelp.com/whattheworld. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/whattheworld. Okay, so let's get back to it. Excuse me, I had to cough. So, okay, so Zulema just sent the little Bible verse, and she asks Lori, can you ask Chad if this is what the Savior did to us this morning when he placed his hands on our heads? Lori replies, Chad says, yes. Zulema says, okay, we got the power. So clearly they did something at Lori's house, maybe a casting out. And Zulema says she's exhausted and foggy brained. She said she feels like she has a helmet on her head. And Lori says, I'll try to remove it, but I'm pretty exhausted. And Zulema says they did big work last night. And Lori said that they did good. So around April 11th, Lori goes to Houston to see JJ. And at some point, she moves back in with Charles and JJ. And a friend of Charles actually questioned, do you trust her moving back? So the friend said, do you trust what she's saying? Do you trust Lori? And Charles replied, yes, without any doubt. Like I said, a lot of misunderstanding. We have our Lori back and JJ is over the moon. And again, I've said it, I think every episode for the last week, Charles had a lot of faith in Lori and a lot of trust that she had his best interest at heart. And we see that over and over again. But when she finally, Charles's sister Kay told East Idaho News some things about when Lori moved back. And Kay said when she finally came to Houston, she was still blaming him for everything and they weren't going to get back together. She was like, I'm not getting a divorce, because she had already had so many divorces. Remember, Charles is number 4. And she said because she's had so many divorces, she was like, we're not getting back together, but we're not getting divorced. I think that totally just ties into the life insurance policy 100%. So Kay said that Charles was in limbo and she broke him down. He happened to be doing a huge insurance commission check. And within less than a week, when she got in Houston, Kay had access to one account, and that's where the commission went. And she said that money flew out of that account so quickly. Charles was asking her for passwords for everything because Kay smartly changed all of that because Charles had given her some management of the company money. And Kay changed these passwords to where Lori couldn't access it. But Charles gave Lori all the passwords back. And as Kay said, gave her the keys to the kingdom once again. And that money was gone in no time. Melanie Gibb was on Dateline, and she was questioned, why Lori was going back to Texas since she was doing everything she could to get away from Charles. And Lori told her, I was told by the Lord, I need to get his finances in order. And about the life insurance policy, Gibb told Keith Morrison she started wondering, is Kay going to get that money? Because she was now told by Chad that Kay's a zombie. And so Lori thought he's going to change it around and give her the beneficiary. And Keith Morrison, in his amazing voice that we all love, says, with Lori reassured that she was still the beneficiary, she left Charles yet again and moved back to Arizona. So April 9th, Julie Rowe, who they think is just coming and attacking everybody in their dreams, she is excommunicated from the church due to 4 factors. Apostasy, number 1. Number 2, teaching false doctrine. Number 3, priestcraft. Number 4, defaming the good name of the church. Julie insisted that she was falsely accused and said she was going to appeal that, but I don't think she was successful. So April 13th, Zulema texts Lori, I had a feeling that we should be clearing states and areas. So amazing what you're doing. Lori responds, we've got 12 states done, and no, he is still here, but it's something the Lord is making me do in person. He sent me here to get things in order first. His house is a house of order, not chaos. So he is teaching me to be patient and orderly. Miss you and love you so much. April 14th, Zulema asked Lori if September 21st was when she had her first visitation. And Lori responds, I had it on September 22nd. The same day, Moroni I met with Joseph every year for all those years before he got the plates. He first appeared to him on the 21st, but continued through the night to the 22nd. Then he always met with him on the 22nd. And Zulema says that completes the revelation and prophecy. Zulema then texts Lori to join them on Zoom and that Serena is on that Zoom now. And I think the date, last episode, I wasn't sure. April 15th, I believe, is when Ian Pulowski's wife, Natalie, files for divorce. Remember, this was on their wedding anniversary. And man, that same day, April 15th, Lori texts Zulema, we just cleared Montana, Oregon, and Washington. Zulema said that's great, and it's tax day, which is no fun. So she asked Lori to send her some tax angels, and Lori says financial genius angels on the way. Oh my gosh. April 16th, Lori texted Zulema and asked if she felt her call her at 10 a.m. And she said she was in the celestial room and cleared California and Alaska. So on April 17th, Charles and Lori are texting. Yes, I notice it every day and you look marvelous, absolutely stunning. So there's just, some little text back and forth. April 21st, Lori registers a Yahoo account under the name Karen Walker, and it's kkwalker@yahoo.com. What's interesting is yesterday on that episode, we read a text from Lori to Kay Woodcock, and it was KK. So this is kkwalker@yahoo.com. And Lori used a slightly different birth date than her own, but used her own phone number. And the physical address was linked to Katy, Texas, where she was living with Charles at the time. So earlier when I said that, Keith Morrison mentioned that once she was reassured, she was still the beneficiary. She moved back. Clearly that hadn't happened yet. So the account was active until June 26th, and it was logged into a total of 35 times. The first email was sent the day it was created, and it went to Chad, and it says, Dear Brother Daybell, hi, this is Karen from AVAL. She lied. I contacted you a couple of weeks ago to see if you would be willing to come speak to our youth here in Houston, Texas. You said you probably could if there was a way to cover your expenses. I mean, look, Charles paying for everybody at this point. Why not just pay for her boyfriend? Jeez. Since then, I can't shake the feeling that you need to come share your story, particularly about chasing paradise. We are near the Houston Temple, and this summer, our stake is focusing on family history work. My reason for contacting you again is we have a stake youth conference planned for all day on Saturday, April 27th. The focus is on the temple, and I know you would energize the kids with your stories. Look, can I just say, as monotone as Chad speaks, he energizing no teenagers. We expect about 400 kids to attend, including some parents. I know it's extremely short notice, but is there any chance you could come? A high councilman is currently the main speaker, but he said he would be happy to let you speak instead. My husband and I have been financially blessed, and we would pay for your flight. We also have, and I couldn't get this, something attached to our house where you could stay and not be bothered, like an in-law suite, I think. Also, my daughter mentioned the young single adults would love you to put together a fireside on Sunday evening. I realize your main goal is to sell books, and that wouldn't be possible at these events, but I know the interest in your novels would skyrocket here. I'm sorry it's so late. If possible, please let me know as early as possible in the morning so I can include it in the Sunday announcements. Also, we'd want to get your flights booked. If you're able to do both events, we could fly you in on Friday and then depart on Monday. Please let me know if this is possible. We would love it. Karen Walker. Chad responds an hour later. Hello, Karen. Yes, I'll be able to come. So let the wards know. I can talk to you later about arranging the flight. Chad. Messages between Lori and Tylee around this time indicate Tylee was frustrated being left alone over the weekend and would much rather have been in Arizona. And there were other emails sent from this account. Most of them were invitations for Chad to listen to a song. And some of them, okay, so we did this in a past episode. I'm going to tweet these songs out. One is Just Can't Get Enough. The other one is Let's Make Love by Faith Hill. And then I Dreamed a Dream from Les Mis. So Chad makes the trip to Texas, and Lori sent a follow-up email on April 30th thanking him for coming. So April 24th, Zulema texts Lori asking how she is, and Lori responds, "We've been clearing countries, working on the world." They cleared over 660 million in the U.S. alone. Also did Canada, Mexico, and Greenland. Oh, and this is something I need to ask about. Lori tells Zulema that JJ has a broken leg and has a cast from hip to toe. I remember hearing the answer to that in the past. I can't remember. I need to reach out to somebody and find out what that is. I'll update that on the next episode. And April 29th, Lori texts Zulema that they cleared all of South America, hundreds of millions of them. So that finishes up April in Lori's crazy little world. And oh my gosh, I doubt Tylee wanted some fireside conference, which had Daybell. It's all hogwash, y'all. Whew, diabetes. She got a bad case of it. All right, guys, that's it for today. Tomorrow, we're going to start out talking about the changes that Melanie's dad saw. And when his wife visited them, as she always did, she noticed this go around was very different. So we'll start with that tomorrow. Until then, I hope you guys have a good evening. We will see you soon.
With no fees or minimums and no overdraft fees, banking with Capital One is the easiest decision in the history of decisions. Even easier than choosing to keep the Grinch away from the toy drive.
Who's going to deliver the toys to the kids?
What about me, the Grinch?
No.
Yep, even easier than that.
You steal the presents one time.
With no fees or minimums and no overdraft fees, is it even a decision? That's banking reimagined. What's in your wallet?
Terms apply. Capital One N.A. member FDIC. Copyright Dr. Seuss Enterprises. Copyright Turner Entertainment Company.
With the Lucky Land Slots, you can get lucky just about anywhere.
This is your captain speaking. We've got clear runway and the weather's fine, but we're just going to circle up here a while and get lucky. No, nothing like that. It's just these cash prizes add up quick. So I suggest you sit back, keep your tray table upright, and start getting lucky.
Play for free at LuckyLandSlots.com. Are you feeling lucky? No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+ terms and conditions apply. See website for details.